In this chapter, you'll start your first hands-on experience with your new Apple III. First, we'll review the way you should have the hardware interconnected for proper operation. You'll connect an external disk drive and your video monitor. Then you'll learn how to use your disk drives and the proper way to use and care for floppy disks. Right now, we'll interconnect your video monitor to your Apple III. Be sure that you don't have the power cord plugged into an electrical outlet at this time. We'll tell you when to plug it in. Turn your Apple around so that you can work on the back panel where the connectors are. Find the video cable that comes with your video monitor. The cable will have a connector just like those on stereo equipment. Plug one end of the cable into the video in jack on the back panel of your video monitor. Be sure that you have the video cable uncoiled. Sometimes a tightly coiled cable will cause a magnetic field to interfere with the video signal going to the monitor. Plug the other end of that cable to the black and white video connector on the back of your Apple. Now locate your second disk drive if you have one with your system. Take the flat ribbon cable that leads out from the back of the disk drive and hold the connector so that the ribbon cable is perpendicular to the floor and the raised bump is on the top of the connector. Now find the connector on the back panel of your Apple III labeled floppy disks. Notice that there is a notch on the top middle of the connector that matches a raised bump on the connector at the end of the ribbon cable. Very carefully position the plug so that the notch and the bump are lined up and push the connector into the plug. Make sure that the notch and the bump are aligned correctly. Plugging the connectors together in any other direction could damage your disk drive and Apple III. At this point, you have mechanically configured the second drive to your system. Since most people purchase at least one external drive to go with their systems, Apple Computer has configured all Apple III systems shipped from the factory with proper operating instructions to use two drives. If you do have a second external drive to add to your system, you should connect its cable to the floppy disk connector on the back of your first external drive. This is called daisy chaining, and it allows up to 3 drives to be connected to the drive that is located inside of your Apple III's main chassis. Your owner's guide will give you the proper procedure for configuring your software system for that third drive. If you have purchased a printer for use with your system, this would be a good time to connect it. Printer cables and connectors may vary, so we won't show you how to connect all printers and connectors. Consult the manual that came with your printer to determine the proper way of connecting it to your system. If you have purchased a profile hard disk unit for your Apple III system, this would be the time to connect it. Your dealer should have already plugged in an interface card into slot number 4 on the inside of your computer. Plug the end of the connector coming from the profile into the connector on the back of your computer, as we show here. Connect the power cord into the slot on the back of the profile. Then connect the AC power connector from the profile unit into a properly grounded AC outlet. Now turn the profile's power switch on. You must wait 60 seconds for the profile unit to come up to full speed before you turn your computer on. Now plug your monitor's power cord into an electrical outlet. Be sure you use an outlet that has a 3-prong grounding type plug. This is for your own safety and will prevent any electrical shock potential. Now locate the power cord for your Apple. Plug the rectangular end of the cord, as we show here, into the power connector which is next to the power switch on the back of your Apple III. Now plug the other end into a properly grounded 3-prong electrical outlet. If you have to use an extension cord for either the computer power cord or your monitor power cord, make sure it is the kind with a 3-prong connector and is properly grounded. Notice that we have plugged the various power cords from our units into a box like this. This is a surge protector and is available from most computer dealers. Surge protectors protect your components from sudden high-voltage surges of electricity that occur on electrical service to businesses and homes. These surges can cause a loss of data or completely stop a program from running properly. A recent study showed that the average business or home receives about 3 such hits, as they are called today. As you are operating your system later and experience sudden losses of data or programs that all of a sudden start acting strangely, you might want to explore the use of one of several available surge protectors for your equipment. By now, you should have everything connected together and plugged into electrical power. However, do make sure that your television set for your video player is on the left-hand side of your Apple III, not on the right. Placing a television set too close to a disk drive will cause interference and your computer won't function properly. You'll then have the best seat in the house for your new computer experience. When you do actually turn the power to your Apple III on, you will need to have a program disk in the drive. Right now, though, we'll go over the proper way to care for and use disks. Remember, a disk drive is a combination input-output device. Instructions or data, called software, can be written magnetically on the so-called floppy disks, much like the way a tape recorder records sounds by turning them into magnetic impulses. This is an output function. Instructions and data can also be read from the disks by your processor. This is an input function. The data is being inputted into your Apple's memory. Another way of saying write is save, and another way of saying read is load. You may save data on a disk by writing onto that disk, and you may read data from that disk by loading it into random access memory. The disk drive unit is nothing more than a specially designed tape recorder for handling data. In many models of personal computers, owners use audiocassette recorders to load and save programs and data. However, because an audiocassette recorder depends on a long piece of tape to record or play back its contents, it takes a long time to read from or write on it. It is also difficult to find places on the tape where specific programs were stored, since the only reference on the continuous length of tape is the beginning of that tape. Another advantage to a disk system is the capacity of disks. One floppy disk that you will use with your Apple III can hold about as much information as about 45 pages of standard typewriter paper with double-spaced lines. The floppy disks that you will use with your Apple are really just plastic disks coated with a magnetic coating similar to the magnetic coating on an audio cassette. We have taken this disk apart to show you the inside. However, we don't recommend that you open a disk yourself because it will ruin it forever. Because the disk is flat, tracks can be laid down in a circular manner, side by side. This makes it very fast to access different parts of the disk where data may be stored or where you wish to save data. In fact, to make it even easier to find specific places on a disk, the disk is further divided into sectors by magnetic coating. The actual disk itself is permanently enclosed inside of a plastic cover that has access holes in it for the disk drive to make contact with the disk. The cover protects the surface of the disk, allows it to rotate freely, and helps keep it clean. The whole package, the plastic cover and the disk itself, is sometimes referred to as a diskette. However, more and more manufacturers and users are calling diskettes simply disks. We'll call diskettes disks in this video program. Disks must be handled with extreme caution. Never write directly onto the plastic cover with a ballpoint pen or pencil. Put no pressure on the cover or the disk itself. The proper way to label a disk is to write on the blank label that is supplied with the disk. Then carefully attach that label to the disk. If you do have to write directly on a disk, use a felt tip pen and write very lightly. Disks should never be placed on or near anything that generates a magnetic or electrical field. Keep your disks away from telephones, television sets, or stereo equipment. Don't set your disk on top of your Apple III monitor, and don't set your telephone on top of a disk. Extreme temperatures can be dangerous to disks. Keep them out of the sun, as they could warp or lose data. The first visible sign of damage to a disk could be warping or bending of the disk cover. However, the disk could have already lost data if it was near a magnetic field. Don't ever let anything touch the gray or brown surface of the disk itself. Always try to store your disk in the treated paper packet that came with it. It helps to prevent static buildup on the disk, which could then attract dust. And try to store your disk vertically in any one of several holders that are available for this purpose. Disks can last more than 40 hours if a reasonable amount of care is taken with them. 40 hours is a long time when you consider that they are used for only a few seconds when you load or save a program. To put a disk into a drive correctly, open the door to the drive by lifting it up. Then hold the disk so that your thumb is pointing at the manufacturer's label as we show here. With the large oval cutout on the top of the disk pointing toward the drive, insert the disk. Keep the disk as flat as possible. Gently push the disk into the drive until it stops. Never force your disks into the disk drive. If you meet with any resistance at all when you are pushing the disk in, take it out gently and try again. Make sure you are inserting it with the label up and facing away from you toward the disk drive. Once the disk is in as far as it will go, close the door to the drive. Don't force the door closed. If you meet with any resistance, take the disk out and try again. Sometimes carefully centering the disk inside of the hole in the plastic cover will allow the disk to go in properly after a first attempt has failed. Don't ever insert a disk when the drive is running. You can tell it's running by hearing the whirring and clicking sound coming from the drive or by seeing the red light glow in the front of the drive unit. In order for your Apple to use disks, it needs to know what the various peripherals are that you have connected to your individual system. And it needs to be able to interpret various languages that the programs contained on disk may use. Your Apple III needs to have almost all of this information loaded into its random access memory before it can let you use a program contained on a disk. In order to know how to operate and use disks, your computer must get that information from a disk. How does it do this? It's done with a process known in the computer world as booting. Booting is a very important term. It is used extensively with computers, and you'll soon run across an instruction in an operating manual that simply says boot such and such a disk. Not all disks have enough information on them to be called boot disks. A boot disk must have 3 elements already programmed onto it. The first element, an operating system, is the program that controls the computer's entire operation in a uniform manner. The operating system designed for Apple IIIs is called SOS, which stands for Sophisticated Operating System. Most people refer to it simply as SOS. The second element a boot disk must have is a set of programs that tells what peripherals you have connected to your particular system, where they are connected, and what unique characteristics they may have. These smaller programs for the peripherals are called device drivers. They allow the operating system to communicate with various input-output devices such as the console, your disk drives, a printer, modem, or hard disk. And the third element on any boot disk must be an interpreter program that lets your Apple III run programs written in a specific language. We'll get into languages in a later chapter. Those 3 elements taken together are essential to operation of your computer. If you try to boot your Apple III with a disk that doesn't have one or more of these 3 elements, you'll get a message like this, or something similar from your computer. The simplest way to boot a boot disk is with Auto Start. With the power to your computer turned off, you simply insert the boot disk into the drive, close the door to the drive, and turn the power to your Apple III on. Here's what happens. Let's assume that you have put a specially prepared boot disk into your disk drive. When you first turn the power switch on, the drive starts to run. Your Apple III has a program called Auto Start programmed into its ROMs. There is just enough information for your Apple III to know where to look for a disk drive and how to read the first bit of data from a boot disk in that drive. So you put the disk in, and the first little piece of information loads into RAM. And all the first piece says is how to load the second piece. And the second piece loads the third piece, and so on until all the pieces that are necessary are loaded. And so, in a sense, it teaches itself how to read itself. It's sort of like pulling yourself up to the moon by pulling on your own bootstraps. Be sure you understand the concept of booting. You'll be asked to boot a disk frequently. Some computer system manufacturers call it starting. Starting and booting are the same. We'll auto-start boot a disk now. Turn your monitor power switch on. Now find the disk that came with your Apple III labeled System Demonstration and insert it into the drive right above the keyboard. Close the door to your drive. Now reach around the left side of your computer and turn on the power switch located on the back panel. You'll immediately hear some clicking and whirring sounds coming from the drive, and the red in-use light will light up on the front of the drive unit. In just a few seconds, your monitor screen will show a display similar to this. In just a few more seconds, this display will show on your monitor. Finally, this display will come up and start to show you a demonstration of the business graphics ability of your Apple III. Unless you hit the key on the upper left side of your keyboard labeled Escape, this demonstration will continue to cycle until you turn the power off to your Apple. There is another way to boot a disk. You'll use this method when you have already powered up your Apple III and want to boot a different program. Let's try it. Find the System Utilities disk. Then turn the power to your Apple III off. Now remove the System Demonstration disk you already have in the disk drive and replace it with the System Utilities disk. Turn the power on. After the disk drive has stopped running, this display will appear on your screen. With the power to your Apple still on, remove the System Utilities disk and put the System Demonstration disk back in. Now you're ready to try the second way to boot a disk. Find the Control key on the left-hand side of your keyboard. Locate the reset notch along the top of your keyboard, right below the disk drive. As you can see, the reset key is recessed and a little difficult to get to. It has been designed that way so that you will have protection against accidentally hitting it and losing all of the data that you may have loaded and wish to save. Now hold the Control key down while you press the Reset button in. The main Utilities menu disappeared, and your Apple acted exactly like it did when you powered up and did an auto start boot just a few moments ago. This is the other way you can boot a disk. The Control Reset function that you performed erased any and all data that was loaded into RAM. It's a handy function to use when you want to change entire programs and load new ones. The Control Reset function that you performed erased any and all data that was loaded into RAM from the Utilities disk, and it then booted the disk you had loaded. Do a Control Reset now. As you can see, the System Demonstration program was not affected at all. Some programs will not allow a Control Reset to take place when you are running them. That is for your own protection of data. If you are finished running one of these programs and want to boot another disk, there is a proper exit procedure that you must follow to back out of the program. For more information, check the operating manuals for the programs you'll be working with. In order to exit the System Demonstration disk, you'll need to press the Escape key to bring up the Demonstration Programs menu. Press Escape now. You'll see this display on your monitor. Notice that number 5, Exit the Demonstration, gives you a way to exit from this disk. Now press the number 5. This display should be on your screen. You could now put another disk in and do a Control Reset. For now, leave the System Demonstration disk in the drive and reboot it by doing a Control Reset. This method of booting is preferred, especially with hard disk storage systems. In addition, many newer programs take a long time to boot from a complete power-off condition. In this chapter, you should have learned how to connect your computer to the monitor, how to use floppy disks, and how to boot a disk. We'll take a look at your new keyboard and its many functions in the next chapter.